The arrival. The August heat pressed down on the Advanced Marksmanship Training Center outside Fort Bragg, North Carolina, turning the red clay ground into a dust bowl that clung to boots and stung eyes. Levi stepped off the shuttle bus, a weathered duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a long rifle case gripped tight in his calloused hand. At 28, he was older than most of the other trainees filtering through the gates, young Marines and Army Rangers, cocky and sharp in their movements, their gear pristine and regulation perfect. Levi's case was different, scratched, dented, held together with duct tape at one corner. "Check out Grandpa over here," a voice called out. Mason, a stocky Marine with a buzz cut so fresh his scalp still showed razor burn, nudged his buddy Elijah. "Dude's carrying his rifle in a case from the 90s. Elijah snorted, pushing his sunglasses up. "Probably got it at a yard sale." Levi said nothing. He'd heard worse. 3 years as a ranch hand in Montana. 2 tours as a National Guard sharpshooter in places that didn't make the news anymore, and a medical discharge that left him with a right shoulder that would never rotate quite right again. He'd learned that words were just noise. What mattered was the work. Inside the registration building, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Instructor Owen, a barrel-chested former Delta operator with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, checked names against his roster. "Levi Hartman?" Owen's voice was gravel and cigarettes. "Yes, sir." "You're the late addition, National Guard background." Owen's eyes flicked to Levi's shoulder, noting the slight hitch in how he held himself. "Yes, sir. Medical separation, but I qualified for the civilian advanced program." Owen grunted. "Long as you can shoot, I don't care if you're held together with staples and hope. Barracks are through that door. Training starts 0600. Don't be late." The crooked rifle. The next morning arrived with the kind of cold that only deserts can produce. 40-degree air that would climb to 90 by noon. Levi was already awake, had been since 4:30, working through the stretches his physical therapist had drilled into him. His shoulder protested with each rotation, a grinding sensation that made his teeth clench. On the range, 20 trainees lined up their equipment for inspection. Rifles gleamed in the early light. M4s, AR-15s, custom bolt actions worth thousands of dollars, all perfectly maintained, all perfectly straight. Then there was Levi's. When he unzipped his case, the murmurs started immediately. The rifle's stock was clearly handmade, asymmetrical, with a strange cant to the grip. The barrel had been modified, the scope mount sat at an odd angle, and the entire weapon looked like it had been assembled by someone who'd never seen a proper firearm before. It wasn't just used. It looked wrong, like something had bent it, and it had never quite straightened out. "Holy shit," Mason said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Is that thing even legal?" Hunter, a lanky Army Ranger with a Tennessee drawl, let out a low whistle. Man brought a hardware store project to a professional course. Even Grace, one of only 3 women in the program and normally too focused to bother with other people's business, raised an eyebrow. "Did you build that yourself?" "Modified it," Levi said quietly, running his hand along the stock. "Works for me." "Works for you?" Elijah laughed, slapping his knee. "Brother, that thing looks like it got run over by a truck and somebody tried to hammer it back into shape." The laughter spread. Not cruel exactly, but dismissive, the kind of laughter that said, "You don't belong here." Instructor Owen approached, his boots crunching on gravel. He studied the rifle without expression, his weathered face giving nothing away. "That's non-standard," he said finally. "Yes, sir, I have the paperwork. It's legal, just customized." "Can you shoot it?" "Yes, sir." Owen's eyes narrowed. "We'll see. Qualification starts in 15 minutes. Everyone on the line." The qualification. The morning sun climbed higher as the trainees spread out along the firing line. Standard qualification, static targets at 100, 200 and 300 yards. Nothing fancy, just proof you could hit what you aimed at. Levi took his position at Station 12, the whispers still following him. To his left, Mason was showing off his custom AR-15 to Elijah, all carbon fiber and tactical accessories. To his right, Stella, a former cop from Chicago with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, was checking her own rifle, ignoring the circus. "All right, listen up," Owen's voice carried across the range. "This is baseline. I need to know what you can do before I waste time teaching you anything. 3 rounds per target, 9 targets total. Part-time is 4 minutes. If you can't pass this, you're on the next bus out. Clear?" A chorus of "Yes, sir," echoed back. "Load and make ready." The metallic sounds of bolts sliding, magazines seating, safeties clicking. Levi's movements were slower than the others, more deliberate. His shoulder wouldn't let him snap the rifle up like they could. Instead, he had to position himself carefully, let the modified stock settle into the pocket between his damaged shoulder and chest, finding that one angle where the pain didn't spike. "On my mark! Fire!" The range erupted. 20 rifles barking in irregular rhythm, brass casings arcing through the air, the smell of gunpowder thick and acrid. Levi's first shot felt wrong, the recoil driving through his shoulder at an angle that made him grunt, but the target showed a hit. Center mass. He adjusted, fired again. Another hit. The rifle that looked like a disaster actually channeled the recoil away from his damaged tissue, distributing the force across his chest instead of straight back into the joint. 4 minutes later, Owen called ceasefire. "Safety's on! Unload! Rifles down!" Targets were retrieved, scores tallied. Mason had posted perfect 27 rounds, 27 hits, all in the kill zone. Elijah was close behind. Grace had outshot half the men. Hunter's groupings were tight enough to cover with a quarter. And Levi? 26 hits out of 27. 1 miss at 300 yards, where the wind had picked up and he'd miscalculated. Not perfect, but passing. Barely. "Not bad for a crooked gun," Stella muttered as she passed him, something almost like respect in her voice, but Mason wasn't done. "Yeah. Barely qualified. Wonder how that yard sale special's gonna handle when things get interesting." The flying target day 3 brought the advanced drills, moving targets, stress scenarios, rapid engagement. This was where the course earned its reputation, where recreational shooters washed out and professionals proved themselves. The morning had been brutal, running drills with full gear in 90-degree heat, then immediately transitioning to shooting while exhausted. Levi's shoulder was screaming, each shot sending bolts of pain down his arm that he had to breathe through, had to ignore. By lunch, he'd slipped to the bottom third of the class. The whispers had gotten louder. "Dude's gonna hurt himself with that thing," Hunter said, not quite quiet enough. "Or someone else," Mason added. "I swear, every time he fires, that barrel whips like a fishing rod." It didn't. The barrel was fine, but perception was reality. And right now, the perception was that Levi was the weak link. After lunch, Owen gathered everyone at a different part of the range, an area Levi hadn't seen yet, a wide-open field with hills rolling in the background, power lines cutting across the sky in the distance. "This afternoon is about adaptive shooting," Owen announced. "Real-world scenarios don't come with clean sightlines and stationary targets. You're going to track movement, adjust for wind, and make shots under pressure. First up, aerial targets." A murmur ran through the group. Aerial shooting was specialist-level work, the kind of thing you built up to, not threw at people on day 3. Owen gestured to a modified clay pigeon launcher mounted on a truck bed. "We're not launching clays. Too easy, too predictable. We've got something better." An assistant rolled out a cart loaded with what looked like large foam discs, about 2 feet across, lightweight enough to catch wind, but dense enough to see at distance. "These suckers will launch at random intervals, random trajectories. You won't know when or where. Could be straight up, could be at an angle, could be 200 yards out when you finally see it, could be 400. Your job is to track and drop it before it hits the ground. Each of you gets one attempt, one shot. That's it. The group exchanged glances. This wasn't standard training. This was Owen separating the talented from the merely competent. Mason went first. The disc launched hard, angling left and climbing. He tracked it smoothly, squeezed off a round that passed 3 feet behind as the wind pushed the target faster than he'd calculated. Miss Grace went next. Her shot was closer, but the disc juked on a gust and dropped before she could adjust. Miss. One by one they tried. Elijah clipped the edge of his target but didn't bring it down. Hunter's disc launched into the sun, and he lost it in the glare. Stella actually hit hers, the foam exploding in a satisfying puff, and earned a rare nod from Owen. Then it was Levi's turn. He stepped up to the line, that crooked rifle cradled in his arms like he was carrying something fragile. The laughter started again. Quieter now, but there. $5 says he doesn't even see it, Mason whispered to Elijah. $5 says that rifle falls apart when he fires, Elijah whispered back. Levi took his position. The modified stock found its place against his chest, the weird angle suddenly making sense as his body settled into a stance nobody else was using. Weight shifted forward, left foot planted, right side rotated back to protect the shoulder. Owen raised his hand. Shooter ready? Ready, Levi said quietly. Stand by. 5 seconds, 10, 15. The launcher fired with a pneumatic thunk that made everyone flinch. The disc shot out at a severe angle, not straight up, but on a lateral trajectory, screaming across the field at a height that put it against the hills, making it nearly invisible against the brown and green background. Most of the spectators lost it immediately, but Levi's eyes tracked it, his body rotating smooth despite the shoulder, the rifle coming up not fast, but inevitable, like water finding level. The disc caught a thermal, lifted unexpectedly, now 300 yards out and climbing, a speck against the sky that was about to disappear into the power lines. Levi's finger touched the trigger. His breath held. The world narrowed to wind speed, angle, drop, lead time, calculations happening in a part of his brain that didn't need words. The rifle cracked once. For a heartbeat, nothing. The disc continued its flight, still rising, and the spectators started to turn away. Another miss to add to. The disc shattered, not clipped, not grazed, shattered. 400 yards out, moving at speed, changing altitude on wind currents, and Levi had threaded a shot through conditions that would make experienced snipers sweat. The foam pieces fluttered down like confetti. Absolute silence. Mason's mouth hung open. Elijah had frozen mid-sentence. Even Owen's weathered face showed something, not quite surprise, but recognition, the look of someone who'd just seen something they respected. Hunter finally broke the silence. What the hell was that? Levi lowered the rifle, his shoulder throbbing, his hands steady. Adaptation, not defect, he said quietly. The rifle's built for my injury. Angled stock compensates for limited rotation. Modified barrel weight helps me hold steady when my shoulder can't. It looks wrong because it's not built for a normal body, it's built for mine. He turned to face the group, meeting their eyes one by one. I couldn't use a standard rifle anymore, not after the injury, so I learned to work with what I have. Every angle, every modification, it's calculated. You all laughed because it looked broken, but broken and adapted aren't the same thing. Respect earned. The rest of the week changed, not dramatically. Nobody threw a parade or made speeches. But the whispers stopped. When Levi walked to the range, people nodded. When he worked through his stretches, dealing with the pain that never quite went away, nobody made jokes about age or weakness. Mason approached him on the 4th evening, finding him in the maintenance room carefully cleaning his rifle. Hey! Mason's voice had lost its edge. I owe you an apology. I was a dick. Levi glanced up. You were skeptical. Makes sense. It's an unusual weapon. It's not just the weapon. Mason pulled up a stool. I saw your file. 3 years National Guard, deployed twice, medical separation after an IED. You didn't quit. You adapted, and I showed up here thinking I had it all figured out with my fancy gear and my perfect form. He shook his head. That shot you made, I couldn't have made that. None of us could. Different tools for different purposes, Levi said. Your rifle's perfect for you. Mine's perfect for me. By graduation day, Levi had climbed to the middle of the pack in overall scores. Not the top. His physical limitations made some drills impossible at full speed. But in the scenarios that mattered, the complex shots that required thinking instead of just reacting, he consistently outperformed his scores. Owen pulled him aside before the final ceremony. Hartman, I'm recommending you for the instructor training program. Levi blinked. Sir? You've got something most shooters never develop. You understand that the person is the weapon system, not the gun. That rifle of yours is a perfect teaching tool. Shows people that fundamentals matter more than equipment. Owen's scarred face creased into something almost like a smile. Plus, you're patient. Lord knows we need more patient instructors around here. I appreciate that, sir. I'll think about it. Do more than think. We need people who understand that perfect form means nothing if it's not your form. That night, the graduating class gathered at a local bar just outside base. The mood was loose, celebratory. Stella cornered Levi at the bar. So what's next for you? Taking Owen up on the instructor offer? Maybe. Levi nursed his beer. Honestly, hadn't planned past graduating. Figured I'd find private security work, maybe some contract training. You should teach, Grace said, joining them. That shot's going to be a legend around here. People need to see that you don't have to be perfect to be effective. Hell, Hunter added, appearing with a fresh round. I'd take a class from you, learn how to actually adapt instead of just following a manual. Mason raised his glass. To Levi and his crooked rifle. Proof that sometimes what looks like a mistake is just math the rest of us don't understand yet. They drank to that. Outside, the North Carolina night had turned cool, stars sharp overhead. Levi stepped out for air, his shoulder aching the way it always did after a long day. He'd never be what he was before the injury. That version of himself was gone, buried under scar tissue and bone fragments that would never quite heal right. But he'd found something else, a way forward that didn't require being what he used to be. The rifle, that strange, crooked piece of adapted machinery, wasn't a compromise. It was evolution, a tool built for reality instead of ideal conditions. His phone buzzed, a text from his brother back in Montana. Heard you graduated. Proud of you, man. When you coming home? Levi smiled, typing back, Soon. Got some things to figure out first. He looked back through the bar window at the group inside. People who'd started as skeptics and ended as colleagues. People who'd learned the same lesson he had, just from the other direction. Sometimes the thing that looks broken is actually the thing that works best. You just have to be willing to see past the surface, past the assumptions, to the truth underneath. And sometimes the best shot isn't the one that looks perfect. It's the one that hits the target nobody else even saw.